recording. So that way, folks who weren't able to make it on this call might be able to have access to this later. So just let you know that we are recording this call. And then I think what's next? Let's see. Okay, really quickly, some virtual meeting norms since this is not just a webinar version, but I can see some of y'all. Just a reminder to choose a quiet location with minimal background noise for yourself. We're asking that you mute yourself so that way we're not getting distracted as we listen to our wonderful speakers. We ask that you, if you're able to turn on your camera to share this with us, but we also know that a lot of y'all have different things going on today. And then chat responsibly, but also please chat. If you have questions, if you have information that you would like to, get more information on, we would love for you to put that in the chat so that way we can then address those questions as they come. We ask that you do not ask questions by unmuting yourself or anything like that. So please just use the chat for questions. All right. For those of you who might not know, welcome to Drive-In Workshop. SACAC's Drive-In Workshop is you know, a few hours of a seminar for high school counselors and advisors. And this is a way for us to include people across the state through a virtual seminar for us to chat through some of the hot topics and to provide some professional development for you all. There's drive-in workshops across the country, but specifically in SACAC. Each state typically has one annually in the spring semester. And so that's just what we're doing here today. We're excited to share some information with you all. Quickly, here's an agenda overview. We just did introductions and some meeting norms. And then we're about to have some FAFSA updates and information. We're also having someone talk to us about Xello. I'm really excited about that. And then we'll take a little bit of a break because none of us should be staring at a screen for 2.5 hours straight, probably. And then we'll hear some best practices from Cynthia Chomiak. She's been on the high school side at a school. She's worked with a community-based organization and as an independent educational consultant. So that will be really helpful there. And then stay tuned for some final updates and reminders. There's some things that are coming up over this semester and over the summer that you might want to be aware of. And then finally, I wanted to shout out SAI. So State Area Initiatives is the team on the board that puts all of this together and makes sure that our state meetings happen and our drive-in workshops happen. So real quick, anyone from the board, I think we have Monique here. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Monique. I really appreciate you. Thank you for all of the work that you do to make SACAC a wonderful place for us to be able to build community and have our state represented well. All right. With that said, I'm going to toss it over to Steve Booker. I actually haven't met you in person yet or like virtually yet, so nice to meet you. Thank you for agreeing to speak to us. For a little bit of context, and I'm sure he'll share some more, but he's the AVP for Enrollment Management and the Director of Financial Aid at Rollins College. He's been serving in higher education for, I think, over 20 years and has been at Rollins for a handful of years as well. And he just is going to bring some insights to us about FAFSA specifically and from the college perspective of some things to think about as high school students enter this process. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the spotlight, make sure that everyone can see you. And then is everyone good to see my screen, Steve? You good?
I can see it. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, I'll go mute myself, but I'll move the slides for you, okay?
Awesome.
All
Thank
right.
you all. And thank you for having me today. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to talk about financial aid. We'll go over some fast information and some general information here. She did shortchange me a little bit on time. I know I've got the youthful look, but I've actually been in financial aid over almost 30 years now.
Wow, wow.
I'm originally from the Midwest. I've worked at lots of large and small schools and everything in between. I came down here about 18 years ago this summer, and I like to say I found paradise in Florida. Love Florida. So, but I've got a lot of experience at different schools. I also work with our national association to go out and help other colleges and universities. So if you have questions, please feel free to let me know. You're also welcome to contact me anytime afterwards. I always have high school counselors that reach out with specific questions about students. Again, happy to help out. Has nothing to do with Rollins. If you just need help with a student or a student has a question or not sure to go to, again, I'm happy to serve as that resource. All right, so let's get into the FAFSA a little bit, and we'll talk on sort of some of the changes. As you've known, things have happened throughout the last few years. The good news is we are starting to see a rebound in what's happening. So back in 2024, 25, they revamped FAFSA completely and FAFSAs went way down. Students were really frustrated, lots of problems with getting it completed. But now this is according to the National College Attainment Network, NCAN. We're getting close to half of the graduating classes completed a FAFSA. So 41.8% as of February 6th have completed the FAFSA now, which is awesome. A year ago, that was at 30.6 for those graduating seniors. So again, we're making good progress. A lot of positives here are that the FAFSA opened earlier than it ever has for 26, 27. So October 1st is when they're supposed to open. They actually started opening it up in August for certain populations. So that's a big reason why we're starting to see this growth. Whereas a year ago, the FAFSA didn't open until after December 1st, and it was fits and starts and still wasn't as clean as it is now. So we are starting to see those numbers rebound, which is, again, a huge benefit for our students and reducing a lot of those, the anxiety and the problems that go along with it. So that's where we're at on FAFSA. Just one more chart I want to share with you is to share on where we are with Pell Grant eligibility, where it's going nationally. So this is the neediest of students typically. These students are receiving a federal Pell Grant based on the results of their FAFSA. Back in 2023 24, that's prior to all these changes, we were around 37% nationally were eligible. And then in 2024-25, it skyrocketed because of all the changes. And some of the changes weren't exactly what should have happened, but a lot of students did qualify for Pell Grants. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the changes and some of the reductions that we're seeing. But now we're starting to see more of a stable number. So in 2025, 26, it came down. And then 26, 27 is going to come down a little bit more just because of some of the corrections that a Department of Education have done, which is, again, some good changes there that we'll discuss. But that's sort of where we're at on Pell Grant eligibility, which overall students are still qualifying at a higher rate than they did prior to when these changes happened. All right, so let's talk about sort of what we're seeing right now. So as I mentioned, and if any of you had students that you were helping at the time, 2024 was just a hot mess. There's no other way to sort of explain it. There was lots of issues. Students couldn't get the FAFSA done, and when they did, nobody could see it. And I felt so bad for families and students trying to find out their financial aid, trying to get into schools, and they just couldn't do it. It was literally May, June, July before a lot of those seniors could find out. So that really stopped a lot of students from completing it. It also limited the number of colleges that they reached out to because a lot of them waited until they knew what college they were going to go to, and then they listed that school or a couple schools. So they might have missed out on some other schools they wanted to go to, but couldn't get financial aid, didn't know what it was going to be. So I think what we're seeing in the data now is we're seeing that the recovery is getting better. Things are improving, but some students are still a little bit concerned. I've done a lot of FAFSA workshops here locally, and what I've heard from a lot of the parents at the FAFSA workshops are they coming into it, they heard from other friends, or maybe they had a younger child, or I'm sorry, an older child that went to school, and they were really apprehensive about coming in because they heard horror stories about completing the FAFSA. And we got done, they're like, that was easy. That wasn't what I thought it was going to be. The feds really have improved the process. So 26, 27 has been so smooth. And I probably shouldn't say it out loud, but I'm knocking on wood. It really worked well with all the families that we did. We've done this in large sessions with 100 and 200 families in a room trying to get the FAFSA done, and the vast majority got them done. There's always a handful because they have unique circumstances that we had to work through, but most of them were able to get through it no problem and get that FAFSA completed. So again, it's much better than it's been. So again, we keep encouraging families to do the FAFSA, get it in as early as possible because that's what the state needs to qualify for financial aid. And then most institutions to receive financial aid, you want to make sure to get that in. And then for you all, again, I'd encourage you to continue those FAFSA support nights. I know we're all stretched for time in that, but those have been really valuable, I think, for families. All right, so we'll go to the next one. We'll start to get into some of the things that have changed in the legislation. So the FAFSA simplification is what sort of started all this. That was the 24-25 changes that happened. They changed the old expected family contribution name to what's called a student aid index. Still the same results, what it was going to be, but the name change really is helpful Because prior to this, students would see expected family contribution and say, oh, that's what I pay to go to school. Well, no, it's really a number that each college uses to help determine how much aid you qualify for. It's not what you pay. So now with the name change, it really does help solidify that and help explain it. I think it's a little more transparent. Pell determination got expanded, so as I showed you in the chart, a lot more students qualified for federal Pell Grants back in 2024, 2025. A lot of lower income families that weren't eligible before are now and continue to be, which is really helpful. And then one of the other bigger changes that we've seen is there's a lot fewer questions, so it's easier for families to get through. And we're definitely seeing that today. It's a lot fewer questions. The expanded IRS data exchange is also just a huge win for families, and they don't necessarily always understand what this is. But when a student goes to fill out a FAFSA, it connects with the IRS and brings back the income information automatically for almost every student. If you filed a tax return as a student or a parent, it's pulling it back automatically. In the prior years, there were hiccups with it. It wasn't seamless and it caused a lot of angst and it wasn't always right. Or the student had to enter the information and it might have been estimates, or maybe they weren't looking at the tax return, so it wasn't always right. So then things changed later on. This is a huge win, though. So, because colleges get the information that's correct earlier, we're able to send out actual financial aid offers to families, and they're what they're going to receive. It's not going to change. Prior to this, we'd request tax returns would come in, and maybe the family left off a zero on the FAFSA, so we'd have to make changes, or maybe they added an extra zero, so then we'd make changes and give them more money. But it was always a back and forth, and it was hard for families to understand. Whereas now it's pretty much a once and done. Here's your information. Here's what you're going to get at that particular school. If you need more help, contact the school and they'll help you out with that. But as a baseline, it really has cut down on the back and forth with trying to get accurate information and reduced a ton of paperwork for families. If students applied to 10 different schools and they listed 10 schools on the FAFSA, they'd have to provide documentation to all 10 schools. And now again, that's been eliminated. So that's the positives there. Let's go. The next one is going to be on the recent legislation with the One Big Beautiful Bill, or OBB. There have been two sort of major impacts to this, and one's on the Pell side, and then we're going to talk about loans in just a second. So on the Pell side, there's a lot of adjustments that were made. So we refer to a lot of students back in 2024-25 that received Pell Grants as Pellionaires. They were families that showed zero income, or maybe they were self-employed, so it was a negative adjusted gross income, but they had $1 million of assets or more than that, and they still got a Pell Grant because of the way the formula was structured. So those were fixed, which is the right thing to do because families that don't need a Pell Grant, we should not be spending money there. It should be allocated to those who do need it, and that way we don't have a shortfall on Pell funding. So that was a nice closure of that loophole. One, I bring this next one up because it's getting a little bit of attention out there, but it's I think in the scheme of things, it's going to be a minimal impact. So if a student has a full ride to a college and they're eligible for a federal Pell Grant, they can't get the Pell Grant on top. Right now, if a student qualifies, let's go with an athlete. Typically, it's going to impact student athletes. If I'm a student athlete and I got a full ride scholarship to go to, I'll make up, we'll say University of Florida. If I got a full ride to go there, then I can't get a federal Pell Grant on top of that. However, what most schools are doing is they're just reducing their amount. So it's not a full ride. It's close to it, but not a full ride. So now they get that plus the federal Pell Grant, which then still covers everything. So that's why I think this is really a non-issue, but it's starting to get some play out there. And I just want to make sure if you talk with any students or they're concerned about that, just let them know it's unlikely to impact most students, if any. And if you have specific questions, happy to look at that student again, wherever they're going. I just want to make sure they get the right information. The next one up there is the foreign income is now counted. So in prior years, there was what's called a foreign income exclusion. So what would happen is you file a tax return, it pull the information in, and there's a line that said foreign income exclusion, which brought your adjusted gross income artificially down. So again, I'll make up some numbers. Let's say I made $200,000, but out of that, 150,000 was from foreign income. The net impact to my adjusted gross income would be 50,000. So that's what shows on the FAFSA. So it looks like I'm a needier student than I really am. They've fixed that. So now foreign income exclusion is counted. So it shows that I truly made 200,000 in that year. So that'll reduce some Pell eligibility, but again, making it more accurate for those students and based on the income of those households. Next one is Pell intensity, and I'm not sure why we use that term. The feds like to come up with terms. It seems like it's more stressful or whatever than it is, but really it's about enrollment. So all this means is you're going to get a Pell Grant. If you qualify for a Pell Grant, you'll receive one based on the number of hours you're enrolled in. So 12 hours is the minimum for full time. If I'm in 1 credit hour, you take 1 divided by 12 times my federal Pell Grant eligibility, and that's how much Pell Grant I'll get for that semester. So it benefits a lot of summer students because summer students, if they're in 1 credit or 2 credits, they weren't eligible any longer. So I think that'll help them out. Part-time students, though, it is going to change a little bit in terms of how much they received. And then the other adjustment was made is on the FAFSA asset exemptions. So prior to the 25-26, you did have to include family, farm, and business net worth, which sort of harms some families because if you live on a farm, you can't sell the farm to get the assets, right? But they were counted against you in your financial aid. So now they're back to being exempted. So that way that doesn't look like you have more money than you're really worth. So again, good changes there. But it's sort of the bottom line is some students that either were eligible in 25-26, they may not be eligible in 26-27. So you might have some families that had a student going to school right now. They're getting maybe a federal Pell Grant. Now they've got a second child coming to school and they're thinking, oh, I'm going to get this as well. They may not. Again, if they fall in those categories, they won't. And then the part-time students would likely see different amounts. So those are some of the things that will happen on the Pell Grant side. Now, the other impact on this bill was on the loan side. So we can go to the next screen. So the two biggest areas here that it impact are the graduate loans. So we refer to them as grad plus loans, and then a parent plus loan. So on the graduate side, if a graduate student needed additional money beyond their base levels unsubsidized loan, they could apply for a grad plus, receive as much as they need if they're eligible for it, and use that towards their education. Starting next year, they can no longer do that. Grad Plus goes away. They will have some legacy provisions in there, but for any new student, new graduate student, it goes away. Same with the Parent Plus. The Parent Plus will still be around, but there's going to be a cap on it now. Whereas in prior years, if a parent needed additional money beyond all the other aid that a student received, they could go to the federal FAFSA website and apply for a Parent Plus loan and receive as much as they need to cover the difference. Now it's going to be capped at $20,000. And it also will have a lifetime cap of 65,000 per student. So in the wisdom of the feds, they said you can get 20,000 a year, but if it takes you 4 years to graduate, you're not going to get 80,000. You get stopped at 65,000. So however that works out. So what's going to happen are some parents will need to go to the private loan area, go to the local bank, and go elsewhere to get one of these private student loans to cover the difference. It's a little bit more stringent to get private loans, but that's likely what will have to happen for parents if they need more. And my advice on that, what I tell families, if you need to borrow more than 20,000 a year anyway, you might, as a first incoming student, you might want to look at other schools, right? So this is coming from a high-priced institution. We don't want students and parents to be that much in debt either. So just keep that in mind as you're going through the borrowing. If you can go back, I'm sorry, stay on that screen just a minute. The other piece to this is if you have a current student, so if a parent has a current student in school and they borrowed a parent loan on them, they still get to do that. There's no cap on those. They get a legacy exemption on it. But that student has to remain at that same school and remain in the same degree program. So it's not about major. So there's been some miscommunication out there, but the feds recently clarified this. You can come in as undecided, you can come in as business, whatever you want to come in as. And if you change next year, you change your junior year and you want to go to biology, no problem. As long as it's still a bachelor's degree, whether it's bachelor's of arts, bachelor's of science, that doesn't matter. But if you come in as an associate's degree and then you decide to go into a bachelor's degree, you change your degree type so the legacy provision goes away. Or if you leave that school. So if a student's at Rollins and they're a biology major and they decide to go to UF and they're going to be a biology major, the legacy provision goes away. So there are some pieces there. So if you talk with any families that currently have students and they have questions, make sure they contact the school that student's going to to make sure that all that applies if they need to continue borrowing. And then the last thing up there is the loan proration. So this is similar to the Pell Grant, um, where students are going to receive their loan based on the number of hours they're in. So if a student's full-time, they get the same amount, doesn't matter. But if a student is in 6 hours, so that would be half-time enrollment, they're going to receive half the loan they were getting before. And this is important more for the adult learners because they're typically in part-time hours. There might be some traditional age students that go part-time, but a lot of it's going to be the non-traditional students that are part-time because they're trying to balance other areas. Their loan will be reduced based on those hours. So again, you take the number of credits they're enrolled in, divided by 12, which is the full-time requirement for an undergraduate student, and that's the percent of loan that they can receive. So that's going to be a big change for a lot of students that are out there. We want to make sure to help work with them as they go along. All right. So I had a couple sort of random things to put out there as well. Some of you might have heard of this. There was back in December, there's a low earnings indicator that was added to the FAFSA. So if a school that the student listed on their FAFSA meets certain criteria, and I think it has to do with median earnings, if they're lower than those of a typical high school graduate in that same area, then a low earnings indicator got added to the FAFSA. There's again some caveats in there that it says doesn't mean that school's bad, doesn't mean there are problems with the school, it just means their median income is a little bit lower. So if you get questions from students about that, again, just talk with them, take a look at the school. As long as the student's graduating students and as long as their retention rate's decent, and use your judgment on what you know about the school, advise the student accordingly. Again, most of those schools are probably fine, but they're trying to make sure that students that are going to school, planning on getting a degree, understand what the ramifications are upon graduation. And then the other thing that came in, it was probably I should have put with the FAFSA simplification slide, but the number in college. So this is something that changed with the new FAFSA simplification, is there is no impact on the student aid index. And this was a major change for a lot of families. So for those that had one student going to school, only one student household going, it didn't matter. But if you're blessed with two or three or four, and we've seen five at the same time, that it used to reduce your EFC at the time, so you qualified for more financial aid. Now it doesn't. It's the exact same SAI for all five students in that example, and you're going to receive less financial aid in general. So that was a major change for families. My advice on this is if you have students in that situation, that maybe there's already an older student going to school and now your student's getting ready to go to school, talk with that college or university and see if there's anything else they can do. Not every school can do it, but there are a lot of schools that will look at that and see if there's additional institutional money they can provide to help with that situation. Because we as an industry, as a financial industry, understand that's an expense to a family. If you're sending two students to school at the same time, I don't care what the cost of either school is, that's a lot of money that you have to pay at the same time. Versus if I'm sending one this year and then 4 or 5 years later, I'm sending another one, I've got more free income each year. So just keep that in mind. Again, talk with the school. All right, so the next slide is just some recommendations I have. A lot of this I'm sure you all know and already do, but start your FAFSA awareness as early as you can. It can be the spring of junior year, but certainly early in the fall where possible. And I know admission applications come up early. You're busy and inundated with all those requests, but the earlier you can do that, the better. We always, when we do our FAFSA workshops, encourage them to get their FSA ID before October 1st. You can get that done at any point, and that way that's out of the way. And quite honestly, I think that's one of the hardest things right now. The feds can't get the username and password stuff right. So get it done ahead of time, and that way that piece is out. As counselors, you can track the completion data of your school if you have interest in that. If you just go to that National College Attainment Network, NCAN, it has it by state, has it by school, has it by tons of demographics, and it just helps you to see where you're at with your information. And then partner with colleges for FAFSA workshops. Again, I encourage you to do that, whether it's the General Financial Aid 101 that they do with families or actual FAFSA workshops to help you get them completed. But overall, try to reassure families and ignore the noise that's out there. There's a lot out there about there's issues or I don't want to do this or I shouldn't do that. Again, financial aid's available for those who need it. and follow the process. The process sometimes can be onerous, can not make sense sometimes. I'm gonna be the first to admit that. But talk with the colleges and universities. They want to help you. I know most of my colleagues here in the state of Florida, awesome people, awesome places, and we want to help you get as much financial aid as possible to go whatever school that you want to. So use them as a good resource. Then my last slide is just some resources that are out there, some websites you can go to. So again, NCAN's on there. And so you guys have the slides. You're welcome to utilize any of those. NASFA is our National Association of Financial Aid Administrators. It has a lot of good information out there as well. So great places to use resources. So that was what I had. I know Pete's coming on here soon to talk more in depth. I don't know if there's any quick questions that anyone had, or if we want to just move on to Pete. Any changes with subsidized? No, there's no changes with the subsidized and unsubsidized loans. It's still the same. Um, they try to get away from some subsidized, but everything's still there. Yep.
It looks like Pete's not on yet, so if you
Yeah,
want to take more questions, that'd be great. If
sure.
anyone else has any.
Here I am here.
Oh, you are here.
Yes.
Wow. Oh, you're just here named as Steve Booker, which was confusing to me.
Yeah, it's the link that I was provided.
I'm so sorry. I don't know why I did
I
that.
would gladly change with Steve's Burger any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Just say he's my alter ego.
Here, I'm gonna rename you real quick. There we go. Awesome, awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Steve, for sharing. I appreciate it. Any other questions before we hand it off? Oh, someone had a question about the definition of a Pellionaire.
So that was where a family would receive a Pell Grant, but because of their income, it showed either zero or a negative income because they're self-employed typically, but they had $1 million or more of assets. So
Mhm.
those students receive federal Pell Grants in that 24-25 aid year.
Perfect, perfect.
The other thing I'm going to throw this in the chat, just if anyone has questions or needs information, I'm happy to help you out. Again, has nothing to do with Rollins, but my email's in there. Feel free to reach out. Just let me know you're at the session, and again, happy to help out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, well, I'll toss this on over to Pete. Do you have you have your own slides, right?
Ye-
Or
Yes, well, I was
something?
just gonna
Talk?
review the how the FAFSA affects state scholarships and grants.
Perfect. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let you share if you would like to. I'll remove this spotlight. One moment. There's a lot of logistics. Where'd you go? All right. I'll spotlight for everyone. There you go. And you can share however you would like to.
Correct. So I'll just talk about it because Steve does a wonderful job. And the very first thing that I want to always take this opportunity to do is thank counselors such as yourselves, ancillary agencies, and the professional financial aid people. As you see, as you heard, Steve Booker announced that he goes out and does financial aid nights. He is one of the ultimate professionals in the industry that highly represents his institution and our profession as a whole. So we always want to first and foremost say thank you. And with that in mind, how does state scholarships and grants also benefit from students filling out the FAFSA or the free application for federal student aid? It is once again essential because schools, institutions, whether that's a state college, state university, private institution, they benefit from your students filling out the FAFSA the earliest as possible, but more importantly, the accurately as possible, because that benefits hits the overall process. Because schools can then evaluate the student for truly all federal, all state, all institutional financial aid. And as counselors, the very first thing we want to always reiterate to yourselves and to your students is to ensure that there are two applications, the FAFSA, that's the free application for federal student aid, and the Florida financial aid applications. Because every year we have thousands of students calling us and saying, "Oh no, I filled out my FAFSA for Bright Futures for any other state scholarship and grant," and that is perfectly fine. But what we highly recommend is when it comes to the FAFSA is not mandatory, but it is essential if the students want to be evaluated for federal, state, and institutional finance. The Florida financial aid application, it is mandated for the Bright Futures Scholarship. So that's why it's vitally important. Now, once a student does complete the FAFSA, they are evaluated for our need-based scholarships, such as a Florida Student Assistance Grant, which is a state scholarship that's based on need. There's also additional scholarships and grants that are based on need or that have a need component. But what we always recommend for counselors is to always communicate to your students. If you fill out both the FAFSA and the Florida financial aid application, they will once again be evaluated for all federal, state, institutional financial aid. And that's why it's vitally important that once again they do it in a timely manner, in an accurate manner, and if, for example, they are chosen for verification, that schools will notify them to please submit the following requirements. But it is also essentially to make sure that your students now understand that they are being treated like young adults, responsible young adults, that they are need to initiate, and it is their responsibility to fulfill the requirements to make sure that whether the FAFSA is completed, the Florida financial aid is completed, their admissions application, and all other financial aid requirements, if they are indeed chosen for either verification or any other requirement, whether it's the financial aid office, business office, housing, make sure that students are now aware that ultimate responsibility lies with them, but that they have dedicated people such as Steve, such as U.S. counselors that will communicate to them that ultimately it is their responsibility to get this done. And once again, we always want to make sure that I myself am here and able to assist all Florida counselors, ancillary institutions that benefit from that. And we also have a tool for all Florida schools to not only look at and make them capable of seeing which of their students at the student level, which of them have completed a FAFSA or a Florida financial aid application. So you have that ability through what's called our data sharing agreement. And you could contact me and we could provide you that service or the ability to bring that service into to your institutions. So with that in mind, I know we are limited on time, but wanted to once again say thank you on behalf of the state of Florida because institutions such as Steve's institution helps us administer $1.2 billion annually in the state of Florida. And with that, I'll take questions or concerns or throw it back to Sierra.
We definitely have some time for questions, so if y'all have questions for Pete specifically in the Department of Education, please share them now.
Correct. There is a question about the EASE grant. That is, it's not a need-based scholarship, is a tuition assistance program. That program is still being funded and more than likely going to increase funding because there's not only the EASE grant, but also another additional allocation for certain careers. So that is going to be funded. It is already proposed in the existing budgets, and we have not heard anything else in the actual budgets, but that it is going to be part of the existing ongoing funding. No, we do not handle the pep up scholarships. That is through our K through 12. We handle from after high school graduation when it comes to post-secondary granting.
Okay, anything else? All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some insights and thoughts. And thank you again, Steve, for your contribution as well.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sorry, Sierra.
yes, question.
I just put my question in the app. So, I don't know if you heard this or not, Pete, but I'm new to Florida. So, what is the Florida financial aid application? Should students fill that out in addition to the FAFSA?
Correct. We highly recommend that every high school graduating senior submits a Florida financial aid application. It is mandated for four of our scholarships. Specifically, it is mandated. That means a requirement for the Florida Bright Future Scholarship, whether they're a Florida Academic, Florida Medallion, Go Seal, or Go Seal Cape. It is mandated for either our spouses or children of deceased or disabled veterans. It is also a requirement. We also have it for the Florida Farm Workers Scholars and two additional scholarships. But therefore, what we want to always make sure that these students complete this application, because whether you having a student going out of state and they're the best and the brightest and they want to come back, they've established by completing this application, which is part of the requirements, an eligibility period of 5 years. But if they don't fill out this simple 5 to 10 minute application, they lost out on the opportunity for this scholarship. That's why it is vitally important that they submit this application. Now, this application, the Florida Financial Aid, requires the students to either fill it out with a social security number, a student ID number, or if they don't have any, they could leave it blank, and the system will assign a pseudo number. And therefore, the student has submitted the actual requirement to submit a Florida financial aid application.
Is there a due date?
Yes. When it comes to high school seniors, the Florida financial aid application opens up just like the FAFSA application on October 1 of their high school graduation year, and it closes August 31st of the graduation year. So, for example, this year for the 25-26 high school graduate, the application opened up on October 1st of 2025, and their deadline is August 31st of 2026. However, we always highly recommend have your students fill out that FAFSA or the Florida financial aid application as soon as possible, starting October 1st. Because even though they filled out that application, they still have until normally high school graduation for their classes, GPA, service hour. Students have until August 31st for their actual qualifying SAT, CLT, or SAT exams, even though they're beyond their high school graduation date. So if students are working on the Bright Future Scholarship requirements and the only thing missing is their test score, they still have past high school graduation. They might be in summer school. They might be already at the post-secondary institution, but they still have until August 31st, and that's the last day to actually take the test. Even though we'll receive the results afterwards, we will still honor the procurement of that Bright Future Scholarship. And then schools can retroactively go back to summer or for that academic year to apply this scholarship.
Thank you.
If I could piggyback real quick on that, what Pete said, just to highlight about doing the form, no matter what the student thinks. If they think they're going out of state, and I've had this conversation with students at high school nights, oh, I'm from Illinois, so I'm gonna go to school in Illinois. Still do it. Still do it. There is no harm in it. There's no cost to it. And that way you've secured yourself if you do decide to come back if things don't work out. So hugely important. We've had students miss out on it just because they didn't do the form. And as Pete said, it literally is a 5 to 10 minute form. It really is a pretty quick form to do.
Thank you, Steve.
We actually still have a few more minutes, so if there's anyone else who wants to put something in the chat or ask the question.
Pete, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Is there any reason to believe that the Bright Futures timeline, as far as how long it is an active scholarship, for the student will that be changing in the future?
Uh, all of our scholarships and grants are subject to legislative change each and every year. So, yes, I could say that if it changes in the legislation, yes, that could. However, that has not been proposed this year. And we normally, as part of the Bright Future Scholarship, we provide a student handbook that normally is geared for the high school senior and high school junior. That way they know exactly what qualifications they need. So when they graduate, they can then qualify for the scholarship. But yes, can it change? Absolutely.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Last call for questions before I share some updates or some reminders from SACAC, or Darla will actually share. Oh, thank you, Monique, for dropping some resources and information in the chat. I appreciate that.
And I'll drop my email address and my phone number, and you guys could all reach me directly for any additional questions or concerns.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And once
And
again, thank you.
thank you. And with that, I'm going to share my screen again, and Darla's gonna share some reminders about SACAC with us.
Yeah. Free access to membership. Ironically, a lot of people don't realize that if you're a public school counselor, that you have a free resource. You can be a member of SACAC free of charge. I literally just met with a high school counselor in a neighboring county and asked her, "Are you a SACAC member?" And she said, "No, no, it's not reimbursable." Well, no, you can join. So please make sure your neighbors know that they can join and become a SACAC member, which gives endless amounts of resources to you as a member. So encourage, if it's a public high school counselor and or a CBO, encourage them to please use this resource as an ongoing annual resource. The next resource that we have is extending the dream. So this is where a grant from the range of $500 to $3,700 opens every year. I'm sorry that the screen that we have has a 26 timeline on that. We'll make sure that the 25 timeline we'll make sure you have the 26 timeline on that. It's comparable, but we'll need to make sure we add that in our chat. But this is a grant that is available to all counselors as an application. So if you're a counselor that is trying to put together a college tour, or if you're putting together resources for test prep and you need additional funding to support this academic push with your students, this is something that you can apply for and be reviewed and have the ability to have access to support your program. So please don't forget, SACAC has resources for you. You just have to look out for them and apply for them. The next resources is our counselor participation fund. This is really an outstanding resource, not only for our annual conference, but also all of our summer programs. The annual conference application is already come and gone. Those applicants have already been awarded, and they know that they have funding to attend our annual conference in New Orleans. But we do have conferences coming up this summer, and that's going to be our summer seminar, our sweet tea tour, and dry run. These applications actually just opened a week ago. They are still going to be reviewed up until March and awarded. So again, if you're a counselor that is in need of assistance to participate in any of these programs, please understand, complete the application and you have an opportunity to be able to utilize these resources without it being an out-of-pocket expense. On a note to one of our speakers that'll be coming up in the next hour, Cynthia Chomiak is one of our counselors that is a SACAC member who works currently for a CBO. And I can tell you she has participated in this, and SACAC has supported her and sent her to our annual conference. So this is real. It does happen. So I encourage you to participate in any way you can.
All right. And then some specific, I'll actually highlight myself for a moment. One second. Do. Okay, awesome. So, speaking of some of the things that you can use those resources for, we have Summer Seminar. This is a 4-day workshop hosted on a college campus for new or nearly new college counseling professionals working at high schools. I've heard amazing things about this opportunity. And then we also have the Sweet Tea Tour, which is a tour for about 40 high school counselors, IECs, CBOs. The tour route varies each year, and it includes many institutions in the Southeast. Monique, do you know where they're going this year? I don't remember. It's in the chat. It's in the chat. Great. So where they're going is in the chat. Feel free to learn more about those opportunities. Again, I've heard amazing things specifically about the Sweet Tea Tour. And then, did someone say something? Oh, go ahead and mute yourself if if I can hear you. And then we have the conference. So like you said, obviously the funds for being able to go for free have already been distributed with those scholarships. But raise your hand if you are going to the conference. I'm so excited to see you there. It is on March 22nd to the 23rd in New Orleans. It's also the 60th anniversary celebration, so definitely come and enjoy that experience. It's always a wonderful professional development experience for me personally. Um, this is let me just read this real quick. It says it's the largest professional development event for the association. The annual conference includes a dynamic lineup of speakers and presenters, engaging sessions, opportunities for networking and outreach. And this doesn't say it, but a great dance party the last night. So I definitely hope to see you there. And scan that if you want some more information. Okay, so we're gonna actually, let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Um, I think we're going to take a 5-minute break. So I'm going to share with you on the screen in a moment what that looks like. And let's come back at 2 p.m. Let me share my screen again. Mhm. So like I said, we do not want to, can we see my screen? Is it the slideshow starting? Is it loading? My computer's getting stressed. There we go. We don't want to be staring at the screen for 2.5 hours straight. So go ahead and take a 5-minute break. You can cut off your screen for a moment, grab some water, use the restroom. Just take a little bit of a break and we'll see you back here around 2 p.m. Okay, that 5 minutes went by fast. Welcome back, everyone. We're gonna jump into our next topic and our next speaker. And Darla's gonna introduce this wonderful guest to us.
Hi, guys. This is Anthony Cook that will be speaking for us on the subject of Xello. It's interesting, some counselors are familiar with Xello, some aren't, but our state initiative has rolled it out officially a few years ago. It is our county-wide resource for K through 12, and Anthony will give us the full lowdown of all the things that Xello can do for us. It really is an outstanding resource. Anthony comes to us with over 20 years of experience. He's a rock star. He has so many accolades that I'd literally have to read his bio, and I won't bore you by doing that. But I will tell you that over 20 years of experience, first 8 years as a teacher, the remainder as a counselor. He's taught in the high school and graduate level. He has been awarded Teacher of the Year, Counselor of the Year. The list just goes on and on. So, Anthony, it is our pleasure to have you teach us about Xello and how we can embrace it and use all of its resources today. So, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on. And I'm excited to share what this tool can do as we try to prepare students for whatever post-secondary pathway that they may choose. So I want to say hi to everybody and welcome you. Thank you for joining us today discussing all things Xello and how you might be able to use the platform to, again, help guide students to future readiness, however or whatever that means to you all. If we don't get Monique to stop clapping and woohooing on here, we may have a virtual fight session right now. She does me like that because I do her like that all the time. So this is her way to get back at me. As was stated, 20 plus years in education that spans kindergarten all the way up through grad school, as a teacher, as a counselor at all levels, as a professor at the undergrad and grad level, around future readiness at the undergrad, and then dealing with our school counselors preparing to enter into this space at the grad level. If if I am not zelloing, being a zellian, you might catch me in my spare time traveling, eating, cooking. I mean, my last name is Cook. It would make no sense if I couldn't cook. So of course I'm going to be practicing that, watching movies and TV shows, and picking up new skills. I got a guitar behind me. That's like my new venture right now. I'm going to play guitar. Who knows? I may be, the next pop singer. We never know. Who cares at my age? I may make it. You know what I mean? So I want to start with some time reviewing some of the Xello key features that will help all students in Florida become future ready. And it starts at the primary level. So we do have our K2 space, which really encourages self-discovery. It's play. I call it the modern day Scooby-Doo, the modern day Clue. Students are trying to solve a mystery. And in so doing, they're learning about potential careers that are out there. They're also learning about the pathways that are available. And for context, for both of those things that I just referred to, when we talk about comprehensive guidance and what Xello provides, I tend to layer that on the three E's of comprehensive guidance. Exposure leads to expansion, expansion leads to experience, and experience is the greatest teacher in life. So really at the primary ages, we want to start exposing them to careers that are out there and all of the pathways that are there. And in so doing, we know that we're expanding all the possibilities that they may have because we know it's limited. They've had limited lifespans, they have limited knowledge. So we want to begin to build on that knowledge. And when we talk about the secondary experience, really when we get into that space, we want to start providing some experiences for students because we know as they get hands-on experiences in these career clusters and career fields, that's really going to inform them on what might be the best fit for them. So that's really what the platform allows us to do. And when I mention those pathways, we tend to summarize those in the four E's. Students will either enroll in a 2-year, 4-year technical college, enlist in the military, seek employment, whether that's through an internship, an apprenticeship, going straight to work, or as we know, Florida promotes entrepreneurship, so students may explore that route. And then the last one is exploration. And really, that's our modern way of saying that gap year. And what a gap year is not, is sitting at home on your mama's couch, eating hot Takis, playing Xbox, trying to be the best Call of Duty player there is out there. That's not what we're saying. What we are saying is, do we have some intentionality working with better organizations like AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, Job Corps, virtual education to really help guide students who haven't quite made that career decision to give them some experience as they transition out of the K-12 space to come back to one of those other three E's, right? So we're already starting to set those things up in the K2 and the 3-5 space. And in the 3-5 space, we're shifting from that self-discovery to building those future ready skills with what we refer to as missions, which in education needs, that those are the ready-made lessons that are in the platform, but we refer to them as missions because it's Dart and the friends that are going on these missions to try to solve some things. So we have pre-made age appropriate curriculum, meaning you don't have to write anything. My first few years as a counselor, every summer we spent writing curriculum because, as you know, there wasn't a lot out there 20 years ago. We now have a lot more curriculum available to us. And with a platform that has these tools, we want to make sure that you have the curriculum. There's full-on lesson plans with in-class activities. So you can be surface level and just kind of go over the topics, or you can dive deeper with 2 or 3 in many cases 4 or 5 extension activities that you can do with your students. And the students' work continues within the middle school. So we want to build that continuum. As soon as we get them in the building, we want to make college and career readiness a part of their education, and we want to continue to build on that. So what they've done in K2 and 3-5, they will begin to build on that at a more age-appropriate level in the middle school space. And then it supports Florida's resiliency education standards. So we actually have a crosswalk document where if you are looking at those standards for the Florida resiliency, you can say, oh, in Xello, we could do this, 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 and this, and it touches on those standards right there. So it's also resiliency standard friendly as well. Now that's the K2 and the 3-5 space. Let's move on to what we refer to as our secondary space, that middle school in high school space. So Xello is for both middle school and high school students, and we want to really help with step one, and that's building self-knowledge. In our first section of building out self-knowledge, this is where students really start exploring their interests and create a rich picture of who they are all on one page. We have several different assessments for students to do. This includes our matchmaker. This is our career interest inventory, which is usually the first thing that students would do in Xello. We also have our personality style that is based on the Hollins Code. So those of us that were using My Career Shines as our state platform, we remember having used Hollins Code that is built into the Xello platform. We also have our Skills Lab assessment, which is the closest thing we have to an aptitude test in Xello. And there's a few others that are available for students to take. So there is some variety, some diversity there. As students work through these assessments, their career matches become more and more refined. We know that students' interests are not static, and students can change their answer to specific questions at any time and within the program, and it'll recalculate and update the results in real time. So we refer to that as being able to reassess at those developmentally appropriate stages, or as they gain more experience, to go back in and say, you know what? I thought I didn't like this very much, but I actually do like this very much. And then it'll update those career matches in real time. We also want to be very transparent with which interests led to a match with a specific career. So we have a find out why button that will show students which answer they selected and how that impacted their match with that career. Again, students can always update their responses if they want to get updated matches. The section is also where our experience timeline and our resume builder lives. When students add experiences to their timeline, they will be asked to reflect on those experiences, what they found challenging, what they learned, and what they enjoyed about that experience. These experiences can then be easily pulled into the resumes with the resume builder once it's time to begin drafting a resume, making that initial process that much easier for students. So essentially, the work that they're doing in resume, a lot of that in Xello, a lot of that can be pulled over into the resume. And students will also have access to their interests and their skill inventories that will be used when students are working through our lessons in a robust built-in curriculum. And the great thing is the work that students are doing in Xello flows right into their lessons, so it becomes personalized to them. So I may be on there doing a job skills interview lesson. That experience is going to be slightly different than what Darla may be seeing there because of what she was doing in the Xello platform. So that personalization really helps quite a bit. And then finally, throughout everything we're reviewing today, I wanted to highlight that even though Xello is designed to be primarily self-directed, we do provide some great lesson plans to help educators expand on these assessments and activities in the classroom. So it's not just for the K2 and 3-5. We also have out-of-the-box lesson plans that you can use in the 6-12 space as well. Now, let's talk about lessons for learning and reflection. Lessons are pre-built in Xello and ready to go for your students. We cover topics such as exploring career matches. We also have lessons on job interviews. We have fantastic lessons on career and lifestyle costs, and there's so many more. In the 6-8 space, there's a handful of lessons that students can do that are essentially self-directed, available in the platform. And these lessons are personalized based on that student's work in Xello, as I mentioned in the previous section. And this gives students the chance to reflect, to reassess and build those future ready skills. So for example, that career and lifestyle cost lesson I mentioned will have students budgeting through a month with a career they have actually saved. So even though the lesson is the same for every student at the beginning, when we shift into that budgeting space using one of those careers, that's where that student's information gets put in there and it gets personalized to that student. So again, that's why it may look a little bit different for me as compared to what Darla or what Pete might experience if they're in there doing the work within the platform. There are approximately 4 pre-built lessons per grade. So students will be expanding on topics, but not doing the same lesson twice. Your success manager will meet with you to decide if you'd like to move any of these around based on your curriculum plans and help you build a grade by grade level scope and sequence that lives directly within Xello by using our completion standards. So that way it makes it easy for students to know what they need to do within the platform, and then even educators that might be helping to support the delivery of the stuff within the platform to know exactly what needs to be done. And as I mentioned before, we have lots of resources for educators that accompany these lessons in Xello if you would like to build on these topics in the future. Now let's talk about our Explore Options section. This puts a wealth of information about all potential pathway at students' fingertips. And that's why one of the reasons this is our state platform, because we know not every single student is going to go to college. As I stated earlier, they may enroll in a 2-year, 4-year technical college, or they may enlist in the military, or they may seek that employment opportunity or that exploration opportunity. So we want to make sure that the platform is catering to each one of those different pathways. With that being said, we have over 5,000 careers, colleges, and majors in the program. Our careers include interviews with real people who are actually working in that career, so students get an idea of what that person's real workspace looks like. You know, it's one thing for us to say it as their teacher, as their counselor, whatever educational position we hold within the building. It's a whole nother thing for them to hear from somebody in the field, an expert in the field. We also include lots of detail whether the career is in questions, demand, whether we include details around their demand. So students will see whether it's high demand, stable, or low demand. The average salary is also included for careers, both in Florida as well as outside the state, so that we can get that comparison. And we include what sort of education may lead you to that career of interest. On our college pages, we include an overview of the school, information about the student body and campus life, as well as details about applying, like acceptance rates and costs. So if students are trying to figure out, am I the right academic fit for this school, they will be able to look at that college profile page and determine that. And the same lends itself to will this be the right financial fit? I always say if I have to sell my kidney on the black market, this is not a good financial fit, right? So we want to make sure that it's affordable. We want to make sure our parents aren't out there selling body parts and things on the black market. So students will be able, within that college profile, determine whether that's going to be a good fit for them. And it's important to note that we gather that data from Peterson's college scorecard data, meaning the colleges, they send all of that stuff up to Peterson, and then we pull that out and get that into the platform. We manually verify data every summer. So if you're curious about the cadence and how often that gets updated, we do that once a year. But again, that source is coming directly from the colleges who report up to Peterson. Our majors will show typical courses for that specific major, as well as schools in Florida that offer that major, and students can filter to view out of state schools as well. So it's not just going to be Florida, they can still do those comparisons. And that courses, the courses that are taken within that major, I've seen that sway students one way or another, whether or not they want to move forward with that major or if they want to switch their major. So that's been very helpful. And of course, this all comes with reporting on the educator side so that you have visibility into what students are saving, including things like the top saved careers, the top schools, and more. I always say when we talk about reporting, everything a student does in Xello, we can pull in a report on the educator side of things. I heard Monique. Let's talk about the plan and the profile, which speaks right to our legislation around the PCAP, the student's personalized career and academic plan. Once students have learned about who they are and explored their option, the next step is actually making a plan. Our goals and plan section in Xello include short and long-term goal setting, creating a plan with one of the 9 different paths post high school, which includes apprenticeship training, military, college, and more. Generally, I like to think of a goal as something that a student can complete within an academic year, like getting an A in math or working toward joining a school club or sports team. And a planning something more long term, what they're really looking or thinking of doing after graduation. So that's how you can kind of think of it. Students have the ability to do both. This is also where Course Planner will live. So this will allow students to plan that 4 years of courses within Xello. So you can see right there, that's that PCAP, that personalized career plan, and that personalized academic plan can all be done within the platform. Now let's talk about our college tools. Our plan section also includes the college tools for students who are looking at college as their next step after graduation. These are all available at no additional cost for Florida schools. This includes sending transcripts and letters of recommendation. You may have heard of Parchment before. We send these transcripts through Parchment's unified inbox, which is extremely large network covering thousands of schools across the country. In fact, it's roughly around 94% of the university and colleges are included in the Parchment family, which means the majority of the schools across the United States. We also have an integration with Common App. The opt-in window for that is in the spring for the upcoming school year. So if your district isn't currently using that, now is the time to start considering that so that way you can opt in the spring and we can make sure you get the training that you need to know how you can leverage this space within the platform to help students that are in that college going process. This year, we launched our national scholarship database, which includes thousands of scholarships, and you can feature your own local scholarships for students. It also has a matching tool to help students narrow down their list, which is most relevant to them. This is the only platform that I'm aware of in my 2 decades in doing this that reaches out into the national, the state, and the local database to make sure that we get students that money that they need. So that way, Monique isn't selling her kidneys on the black market to fund her students' college going experience. You got me? Sierra, you got me. I know, I saw you. You got me. So we want to make sure that we're leveraging the platform. And again, I like to think of Xello as the one-stop shop for all things college and career readiness. As it relates to scholarships, it's very easy for students to create multiple accounts on multiple websites. But if we really build out the local scholarships within the platform, they're getting all 3 buckets hit right there within the platform. And they're able to manage and track their scholarship applications. And finally, our Knowledge Hub includes some great guides for FAFSA, scholarships, grants, and more. And that's information that we verify and we update yearly. So that information on FAFSA is being pulled right from FAFSA's website. There's things there for Common App. There's things there for writing essays. There's things there we would compare grants versus loans versus free dollars, scholarship money. So all of that stuff can be found there. You don't have to do that. We take care of doing that for you all. And there's so much more. To keep us on track today, I'll just add that we have a lot of other features that includes our portfolios, our assignments, and our test score uploads. But we're always improving and releasing new features. Just last year, we released 93 new features, and that included some really big updates, and we're not stopping. So you can keep an eye out for our new features and resources from our team. And those new feature releases are truly coming from the feedback from our educators. We want to make sure that this is easy for you and your students. So as we gain that feedback through our trainings and such, we bring that back to the team. The team puts that on our product roadmap, and we start to add in those new features and clean up features that maybe weren't working as well to make sure that this is the best product that we can put in the hands of educators and students. And with that being said, I'm not going to go in depth in Xello. Can I actually, Sierra, can I share my Xello screen? Am I allowed to?
Yes, you are. I can stop sharing my screen for a moment
Okay.
so you can share. Yeah.
I'll share and just show. I'm just going to do very
Oh,
high level
I love it. I love
um,
it.
and show what's available in Xello for the K2, the 3.5, and the 6.2. So
Please
I
do.
may turn into Bone Thugs and Harmony and start talking real fast. It may sound very harmonized. Just bear with me. This is not
Yeah.
going to do training, but in this short time frame, we want to make sure people can see
Yeah.
this
And
and
you're good on
actually
time. So that's good. That's good. Thank you.
perfect. Let me get out of here. And where's my where's the sharing thing? I don't like what Zoom did. I don't like how they switch stuff up on us. Why can't I
Yeah,
share?
it should be a green button somewhere. And I
No,
think I gave you access to share. So
no, it's not letting me. I don't want to do it that way. I saw it there at the beginning, but now all I can see is our participants and I see you and I don't see the button to let me share it.
is there like another tab up top possibly or without
I
knowing what your screen looks like,
have
unfortunately.
I show meeting times, full screen, dynamic gallery. No, it's all based around how I want to view everybody that's on here.
Okay. I'm gonna remove your spotlight for a moment and see if it reappears.
Okay.
Hmm.
It's acting funky. The new changes that they've made to Zoom is it's do like right now I can't even unmute myself. I don't even see myself to unmute myself. There.
Huh. So the whole bar's gone? Like the whole thing that has the information?
No, now the bar is gone, but now like I see myself in the tile. I can blur my background. I can change my video and viewing settings, but now I can't share anything. I did when I first signed in. I saw it. I was like, ooh, I might be able to share it today.
Yeah, I gave the capability for you too, so I wonder what's happening here.
I think we should make Monique share.
I was trying to pull it up for you. My internet is acting slow. Do you want to give it a go and see if it'll let me? My dashboard is up.
Yours is up.
Yeah, let me see if it'll let me share.
Will you be my Vanna Black?
If I can, friend.
Hey, Anthony, while Monique is working on that, one of the questions that came up in the chat was, is Xello free for private schools yet?
No, private schools will have to pay for that. It's free for public and charter.
Okay.
And
I
then,
will tell you this though, having I've used when I was in Osceola, I used several different platforms,
Hmm.
and Xello was the m most reasonably priced for everything that I got. In fact, I cut when we left one and went to the other for the one that I was paying for, it was just high school. I only ended up paying, I think it was like 100,000 more for K-12. So I let you know that if you just use it for like 9-12, or in this case, it's secondary, so 6-12, it ends up being quite affordable. And I was just talking to a former principal from Osceola. She's running a private school now, and they're in talks of getting it purchased for next year. And we were talking about how much more reasonably priced it is. So if you're on here and you're a private school and you're considering it, please let us know. We'll get you connected with our team and let's see if it's something that we can make sure that it's reasonably priced for you all.
and in that same vein, I work with the CBO very closely, and we're seeing that this type of thing is really needed in the community that we serve. What does that
Mhm.
look like to maybe implement that for a community center?
Yeah, so what I've seen with the CBOs, the conferences that I've gone to, where the CBOs have been at, and having worked with the CBOs myself, and not just in Florida, but in several of my districts,
Right.
really what we try to promote is not working in silos. So our CBOs and our schools, they have been working together. So what
Yep.
I've seen Xello do in those situations where there's such great collaboration, there are
Mhm.
accounts that are being created for members within the CBOs, and then
Okay,
they're able to be that extended hand outside of the school to do the similar stuff that's being done in schools, with that
that's great.
added layer of help and safety nets for students and families.
Perfect. Yeah, we partner with a high school, and so that'll be the way that we'll probably want to explore that. Thank you.
Yep. And now I'm gonna say Vanna Brown, my Vanna Milk Chocolate. She's on now, so she's gonna walk us
Well,
through this a
you
little
know
bit.
what? Let me say this. I think I'm gonna have to stop sharing and reshare the whole screen because I noticed when I went to a school, you guys didn't see my screen change. It stayed on the dashboard, right? Okay, so let me try one more time to just do the full screen so we don't have to keep bouncing back and forth. And if
Okay,
let me see entire. Oh, it won't let me. Okay, that's okay. So
it's
we're gonna
fine.
pivot and we'll
Yeah, we'll
just
be
share
able to
each
show it.
tab. Okay.
I see that you're grade two, so let's go ahead and let's jump in. You know the drill. We've been here, done this.
Okay, hold up. I got a share tab. Can you see CC Spark?
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead and select play. So this is what our K2 students will see when they first enter into this
This
space.
is the Careertown map. Select a location to investigate. Try to
So they're
restore order and collect clues that will help us catch Ernestine before it's too late.
So it's Ernestine McNohire comes into Careertown and snatches up the workers because she's trying to build her own city. And in so doing, now these businesses are starting to fail because they don't have their workers.
Yes,
So
it's
our students,
K2.
our students are connecting with
Yeah.
Detective Jill, and Detective Jill is helping
It
solve the
gets them
mystery.
to where they start thinking about it. Yeah.
Oh, that's Pam.
No, they look.
There we go. Detective Jill is helping students explore the career towns and solve those mysteries. So, in so doing, students are going to fill in the spaces for those missing workers, do the activity, and while they're doing that activities, they're learning about multiple careers within the career towns, which is essentially a more condensed version of the 16 national clusters. Probably a good one to go to. Monique, what's your favorite one?
I like the
The dirty dogs at the
Pet
pet
groomer.
shop. Kwan at the pet shop called. There are pets everywhere, and they aren't getting cleaned. It's chaos. Find out what's going on and help restore order.
Hi, my name
hey,
is Kwan. I'm an advertiser. I make TV commercials and internet ads to tell customers about our business. When I got back from lunch, Tina, the shop owner, was gone.
We've got another missing worker. Tina is a business owner. She
Go ahead and
runs the
pause it for
shop
me,
and makes
Monique.
sure customers are happy. This case file.
So you can see they're getting in. We weren't even talking about pet grooming. We were talking about advertisement within pet grooming, right? So students are learning without even realizing that there are multiple careers within this space. They're going to learn a little background on who the worker is, what the worker does, what that career is, and then they're going to jump in and they're going to play a little bit. We're not going to do that because we still have two other versions of this to show you, and then we want to make sure that we answer any questions. But if you're on and you have the Zello platform, listen, I told you experience is the best teacher. The way that I became an expert, I was in there just like a little kid playing in the career towns, and that's how I learned that space. I would challenge you to go in there and just kind of get that done. Anytime I do the K2 trainings, it's hard to get my educators back because they're stuck in the games playing. And I'm like, listen, y'all are, we're adults. Yeah, I need you to come back to me, okay? Let the kids play. I can let you play for a little bit. We ain't gonna play for the whole training session though. So now Monique has jumped into the 3-5 space, and you can see how developmentally it has changed because students are changing. Now they're in the intermediate grade spaces, They need something that looks a little bit different. So you saw at the top, we have our three main areas. They're about me. That's where self-discovery happens. Their careers. This is where they will explore the careers that are within the platform, those career profile pages that I talked about. And they can even make goals at the 3-5 space. They can make a future goal. They can also make some SMART goals in there as well. And this is the goals section. There's a video in there, walks them through that, tells them what's a great goal. There'll be prompts to walk them through what that goal is, whether it is their career goal or their future goal. Why don't we go to the careers, Monique? So these are the four ways that students can explore those careers. They can either do it by school subjects, they can do it by career groups, alpha, or what has been saved. Let's go ahead and select career groups. These are your 6 career groups, and it builds upon what was in the K2 space, that building and fixing, the business, the creative, the health, the helping, the nature. This is going to expand a little bit more. They learned about 3 careers when they're in the K2, but when they come to the 3-5, you can see now it's expanding a little bit more. And if we were to jump into a career like aerospace engineer, what students are going to see on the career profile card, one, it does get read aloud to them. So K2 and 3-5 all has read aloud capabilities for what's in the platform, especially for our younger learners, right? So you're going to get a description of what is done in this career, what subjects that they use, which we can kind of lean into that. We got a kid that's like, slacking off in math, but wants to be an aerospace engineer. Little homie, I'm gonna need you to lock in for me, okay? So, because you need math if you're gonna do this. Careers that are like this are available in there. In addition to the careers that are like this, they're gonna get some fun facts on the career. They're gonna get the money they make, the career group that they fall into, and then here goes that pathway education. What's needed for this? So you can see even at the earlier ages, if college is what's needed, that's what's going to show. If military is what's needed, that's what's going to show. And then within the college space, it's not just 4-year. If it's 2-year versus 4-year or versus technical vocational or all 3 are options, that's what's going to show in this space. And then lastly, they're going to get some videos similar to those interviews in the 612 space. They're going to get these videos where they can see what this career all entails. And if we scroll back up to the top, we can go to our About Me, where they're building out all of that self-discovery. So they'll self-assess on interests, they'll self-assess on skills, they'll identify what their favorite school subjects is, and even within those school subjects, what they love the most, which topics they love the most. And this is the place for them to start tracking their achievements. So we're building that positivity, that positive self-image, how our human experience, how easy it is for us to say where we may have dropped the ball or maybe where we have failed versus giving us some time and some space to say, nah, this is where I did good at. So even here in the 3-5 space, students can begin tracking those achievements and such. If we select the Xello tab over to the left, Monique, this will bring us back to the home page, and you can see right below About Me, Careers, and My Goals, these are where the completion standards show up. So this is customizable to your district typically. And everything that you want a student to do at the grade level that they're in will show up here. All the way to have to do is select that completion standard, and it will take them to the space within Xello to work on that specific thing. And then you can see there the missions, the lessons that I talked about. It's self-guided. Typically, there's 5 modules within each mission. The first 3 are very broad and general towards the topic. And then the next 2 modules within that will be specific, pulling in that student's information, but they're going to be joining Dart and the friends to figure out what they need to figure out within that mission. You can see what some of those topics are: learning paths, starting a business. Florida leans into entrepreneurship. It's right there. Facing big challenges. You can see how that's building those future ready skills. These are those soft skills that our students, when they're stepping into the workforce, are lacking. Well, we can start building out those soft skills as early as 3rd and 5th grade. And it's worth mentioning that the platform can be, will you go over to the profile picture to the far right, Monique? I haven't done elementary for a minute, and I want to make sure I say this. If you select change next to English for me, so the platform can be flipped into over 130 plus languages as well. So this is intuitive, immersive language. This is not like Google Translate where it might be a little shoddy in the translation. This truly makes it an immersive experience for students. So that's your 3-5 space. Now, the last one I want to show you, here for a couple minutes and then give us a couple minutes of some Q&A, is our 612 space. So you're going to see how this changes quite a bit, right? Because our students have developmentally changed, so we want to make sure that their platform meets their growth. Come on, Banner Brown.
Gotcha. I got you.
So whether it's middle school or high school, it's a very similar experience outside of the college management of documents. So it doesn't matter what Monique is going to jump into, we're pretty much going to see the same thing. What grade are you going to choose?
I think I did eighth.
Okay.
Yes, I did a middle school, so eighth grade.
Okay. What's on the educator dashboard?
Share this tab. Oh, it's on the educator. Oh, I didn't switch. There we go, body.
Okay.
Now,
So you can see, thank you. So you can see how the 612 experience changes quite a bit from the 3.5 experience. We still have our main entry points. You've got your home tab where students can access those interest inventories and such. You've got your About Me tab. This is where they're doing that self-discovery. They can do their inventories here. They're going to get the results here. They're going to self-assess on skills in interest, build out the resume, identify those experiences. Credential tracking can be done there in the Explore tab. This is where they can use their filters to explore the careers that are within the platform, the 3,500 plus schools that are in the platform, the 100 plus majors and programs. This is where work-based learning stuff can be done. Are there apprenticeships that are available? If it's not college, what are the pathways? This is where they can explore those pathways. And if you have field trips, reps that are coming in, guest speakers, you can manage all of that here in the Exploration tab. And then the last tab up at the top is the Plan tabs. This is where they will build out that PCAP, that personalized career plan or academic plan. They can build out those SMART goals. And this is where they can manage all of those college docs, as well as that scholarship matching tool that was there, the Knowledge Hub that was there as well. You can also even track FAFSA where students are in the FAFSA process. And you see to the left of the screen, like we had completion standards down the middle for 3.5. Here you have your completion standards for students on the left-hand side of the screen. So they don't have to be experts. You don't have to be experts. It could be as simple as the completion standards are set up. Let's get in. Let's start working down the completion standards. And once they open up that completion standard, it'll take them right to the space within the platform where they can work on that specific completion standard. Now, it's important for me to also point out the real game to the far right. This is Xello's response to the financial literacy legislation that we have here within Florida. Just by students playing the real game, which is essentially a game of life, students are hitting half of the financial literacy standards that our state is expecting us to touch on. So students will essentially think about where they are in the once they finish the education for their career. They'll think about, well, what kind of life do I want to live? So we're going to pull in local data towards housing, utilities, expenses like entertainment, clothing, food expenses, phone bills, cable bills, internet, all of that stuff gets calculated in there. And as students start making their decisions, it will begin to chip away at that monthly income to see if they will be in a surplus or a deficit for their budgeting and their lifestyle. So that's the real game there. And then the last thing is just like 3.5 has missions, 612 also has lessons. And again, it's 5 modules. The first 3 are big picture, general. We're dealing with the concepts. The last 2 modules will pull in students' personalized information from the platform. So you can see here how it's set up. It's asynchronous. They can start and stop at their leisure. I used to use this with my ESC students. I had one student in particular. I was like, all right, we're going to build up your perseverance here. So 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off until he can give me 5 minutes on, 2 minutes off, 10 minutes on, 5 minutes off. We worked that out, but you can see how intuitive the lessons are. So it'll have a combination of true and false, multiple choice, short answer, long answer, videos, comic strips. It has everything built in there so that there's some variety. And with that being said, I believe we're close to the end of time. Want to make sure if there are any questions, comments, rules, and remarks, that I can field them for you all while I'm on here with you. Thank you, Monique. I absolutely can share my contact information. Oh, the screen is back. There it is. See at Xello.world. I just put it in the chat for everybody. Now, I'm one of three trainers that are designated to Florida. Feel free to contact me. And if it's not, doesn't deal directly with me as the trainer, I will make sure I'll connect you to the right person, whether that's your success manager, onboarding manager, or my state boss to make sure that we get you whatever help that you might be looking for. Absolutely. And on the screen here, if you need further support, you see our email there, help. It's actually help@xello.world. That's my fault. I'll drop it in the chat to make sure that you have the appropriate email address. And we also have our dedicated phone support there. Xello is known for our customer service. We have won customer service awards for several years, and that was one of my experiences as a district administrator, how good they were to me. And I get to experience now firsthand being behind the scenes, behind the curtain, just to see how much they care about our customers and our clients. So you have that there. And if you're attending the Xello Summit this week, I'll be there Thursday and Friday. We'll be presenting with many of your colleagues across the state on how they've been leveraging Xello for some great success. So we want to invite you out to join us. You will catch us at the Embassy Suites in Lake Buena Vista. That would be Orlando. Come join us. If you got time, you got the space, you got the energy, come out. Check out what your colleagues are doing so that you can get some best practices for yourself. We also have, Monique, I see what you're doing. We also have our Future World. That's going to be our huge college and career summit that's being held in Nashville, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to have every sector out there presenting, working together, collaborating to make sure that we put our students in the best position possible for success after graduation. And with that being said, there's no other questions, I believe my session is over. I actually might have went over. I always go over. That's what I do, Sierra. Sorry.
No, you're good. Thank you so much, Anthony. That was really insightful and helpful to hear. You'll be hearing from me for sure. So thank you so much for your support. If there's no other questions, I'll go ahead and remove that spotlight for a moment, and Darla will introduce our next speaker.
Hi, our next speaker is going to be Cynthia Chomiak. She's been an active participant today, so thank you for coming on early and taking part in the entire drive-in workshop. Cynthia is a really well-experienced counselor on multiple sides of the desk. She has been an independent counselor for over 20 years. She also made a very conscious decision and effort to become a CBO counselor, and she works for the Malvi Foundation in Jacksonville, Florida. She is making huge differences in scores and scores of lives. Cynthia is a friend. She's been a mentor, and she's an amazing counselor. So she was first to come to mind when we discussed the fact of could we have someone represent best practices? And Cynthia was readily willing to say yes. So let me welcome Cynthia Chomiak to share her experience and her suggestions for best practices on working with high school students.
Thank you, Darla. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. Darla and Sierra asked me after a conversation to focus on three topics today. One is consistent communication, and secondly, collaboration amongst peers. And third is helping your students transition to college. So we're going to focus on those three areas. And rather than read a PowerPoint to you, I'm going to give you some anecdotes from the last 20 plus years that may ring true to you or give you ideas on how you can navigate the field of college counseling, regardless of where you are, a high school CBO or as an independent. Okay, Sierra, you can advance one. Okay. So you'll see in this picture, there's a gentleman who I tagged as a college counselor walking down the hall talking to a student. I never I always thought kind of that college counselors were in a silo. And I couldn't have been proven more wrong when my own children went through the process. Um, we lived in New Jersey, and my children went to Princeton Day School. And my daughter's junior year, we had a meeting with her college counselor in the fall, and he talked about her college list, and his name was Dr. Father Dan Scavere. And Father Dan knew our daughter. He talked about attending her photography gallery exhibit when she was a freshman, about seeing her solo in the jazz band concert when she was in 10th grade. And it really it really struck me that he really knew his students that he was counseling. And he said, I'm going to be able to say, I've known Catherine for 4 years because I met her in ninth grade and talked to her about her photography. So I think part of communication is visibility. It's being there, it's showing up. The next example I had was in February of my daughter's junior year of high school. My husband came home and he said, I've been offered a transfer, but it involves a little move. And I said, Oh, really? Where is that? And he said, To Shanghai, China. And yes, and I went into panic mode. And the first thing I thought of is we need to meet with Father Dan. And we did. And I'll tell you about that conversation in a minute, but it went really well. And then when we moved to Shanghai and my daughter was a senior, they had what they called the pit. And if any of you are involved with renovations to your high school space or possible construction projects in ever growing Florida, this college counseling office was cool because it had the counselor offices all along the perimeter, and in the middle were big sofa sets for the kids to lounge on. And on each college counselor's pillar outside of their door, their office door, every day they would post a list of appointment times that students could sign up for. So again, that accessibility, attending events as your personal schedule allows you to, uh, helps to know your students better, makes writing letters of recommendation easier. And then the next communication skill that I picked up was when we moved back from Shanghai. I went back to UCLA to do my college counseling certificate program. And one of my professors quoted a study that said counselors who communicate every 2 weeks with families have fewer disgruntled or disappointed students and families and are less likely to get sued. And that stuck with me. And so when I started my internship and then my private practice and now at the CBO, I formulated monthly email blasts to send out to the students. This is what you should concentrate on this week. And then also other timely news communications. If I saw an article, I'd send a link to the students and or their parents, sometimes just to the parents. Or we have a very active chat up here on our phone in Northeast Florida. And some of our contacts will post admissions numbers, number of applications received, etc. And it's a good time to just take 5 minutes, write an email, blast it out to your families. Also, Zoom seminars, in-person seminars. I just did a financial aid and financial literacy money management session with all of my junior and senior parents 2 weeks ago, just to give them a heads up on what's coming, what needs to be done, and follow up with those senior parents. And then, of course, my favorite are the check-ins with the students. Just being available to them and having them sign up, whether you use a digital uh, calendar or I do the old-fashioned way. In their study lounge at the youth center, I post a paper sign-up sheet because I want them to commit that they're going to be there to see me on the afternoons I am at the Youth Foundation. Um, and then let's move on to collaboration with peers. So I talked a little bit about Father Dan, and when we were transferred, first appointment, first person I called was Father Dan. And we came in as a family and met with him and said, you know, how are we going to navigate this with the college process? It's not unlike what all of us face when you have a shift in your counseling office or you have a new family come in at the last minute. Um, and Father Dan said, you know, Dean, who was the director of college guidance, has served in 2 international schools. Let's meet, but let's call him in and have him chat. And the knowledge that he imparted to us was so timely. Um, Simple things like curriculum planning at Princeton Day School, they don't have a lot of AP courses. By design, the teachers want flexibility to teach. And um, Dean was able to say, your daughter should take a full AP load her senior year because it's going to be a bit easier than what she's had here at Princeton Day. Two, the fact that he knew the director of college guidance at the American School and at SACAC. I love this story. At SACAC, Father Dan, Dean Jacoby, and Dr. Kathy Curtis got together and wrote my daughter's letter of recommendation with all three of them signing it. So that was my first example of true collaboration amongst college counselors at different institutions. Um, my next was when I was at Doane Academy in New Jersey, and I started there as an intern. Had a wonderful, wonderful director of college guidance, Bill Yarwood, and he had been at one private and 2 large public institutions, one in Pennsylvania and one in New Jersey, a wealth of knowledge. But Doane Academy had international students. So I was so honored when he turned the international cohort over to me, and I was able to help students from China to Sierra Leone navigate the process and find their best fit in the American college system. Um, and, you know, as a young counselor, at first I didn't really feel comfortable handling LD students. I felt like I needed more training. So I often would find a colleague who could handle a learning difference until I went to conferences like New Jersey ACAC or other national conferences and learned more by sessions or by continuing education or taking another class. But I still will tell you that if I have an equestrian come across my desk, which doesn't happen anymore, I will refer them to a independent consultant who specializes in the equestrian universities in the United States. But, you know, as you grow and as you continue to go to conferences and continue to take graduate level courses, you'll become more comfortable with LD, with architecture, art, musical theater portfolios. And it's such a joy to see the students kind of drive the car on that process with you looking from the back seat. Um, so it's about kind of recognizing where are my strengths, where are my weaknesses, what do I need to do to improve? And, you know, Darla mentioned that I was able to go through the SAC grant to Raleigh, North Carolina, a few years ago. And that was an amazing experience in the knowledge that I gained, but also the scholarships I learned about for my particular group of students who are all at or below poverty level. And as a CBO, no fee to be a member of SACAC, and so many opportunities here, like today, to gain valuable information. And now that I'm at a CBO, I'm working with Take Stock in Children counselors. I'm working with Thrive Scholars. I'm working with the schools that our students come from in Jacksonville. The zip code I serve is the most violent, poverty-stricken zip code in the state of Florida. The average household income is $31,200 a year for our families. So working with the team, we call it, of the other organizations that provide mentoring and funding to our students is imperative. And then, Darla mentioned that I moved here and welcome Janice, by the way. You'll find it a very friendly state. We were transferred here, and that time I was really glad because my husband came home and he said, "Oh, I've got an opportunity for a new position. It's another transfer." And I looked at him and I said, "You know what you told me last time that we moved to China." He said, "Oh, no, it's 952 miles by Google Maps." And then he told me it was Jacksonville, Florida. And I said, "Okay, let's do that." The next thing I did, went on, I was an independent consultant at the time, went on to the IECA and HECA websites, the two organizations that many independent consultants are members of. And there was nobody in Jacksonville. And I thought, how am I going to find friends? And I went to the Super ACAC in Texas. So some of you who have been around a while might remember that conference. And I met several consultants from Jacksonville. So I formed a group of independent consultants here. And then I used my contacts with admissions reps and had them come to my home, the group of consultants with the admissions reps, and we would do a lunch and learn. And I would have them not only talk about their particular institution, but also give us some information on maybe students applying for engineering or art portfolios or wherever their wheelhouse was for their institution. And it became such a nice, cohesive group. We were able to share resources. And we still, the text chat that I'm referring to is all of these professionals in this part of Florida. And that group was from Savannah to Daytona, St. Augustine and Daytona. So a very vibrant group. So there's always a need, and actually, I would say a thirst for camaraderie and collaboration with peers. And then the next area that I wanted to focus on is our best last chance to help our students transition to college. And I started this very early on, hosting a senior seminar for my seniors and their parents. And it's been very successful, and I still tweak these presentations. Now it's up to 3 presentations every year based on what's new. So you ask yourself, okay, they're in, I'm done. No. What's next? How do we make sure they're successful? How do we make sure they retain and that they stay in college? And you're a person outside of their family that they have grown to love and respect over this journey of college admissions. So they listen to us, whereas they may not listen to mom and dad. And some of the topics that I cover are time management. I'm a foodie. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to Mexico next week and I'm going to take cooking classes. And how to graduate in 4 years, or if they're in a 5-year architecture program or a PharmD program, what does that look like? Studying how to really transition from becoming that dependent learner where mom and dad are waking them up in the morning if they don't get up, and then they're at college and they have to do that. They have to plan their day. They don't have a school schedule set out in front of them. They may have a class at 9 o'clock in the morning and another one at 6 at night. What are they doing between that time? So we talk a lot about going from being a dependent learner to an independent learner. And with my kids at Mal Washington, I frankly tell them the first thing I do with them is make a resume. And I tell them, you're 18, nobody's going to take care of you. So you are responsible for you. And let's figure out how we can do this and how we can be successful. So I created 3 PowerPoints. One is called the College Success Playbook. The other is called the Hidden Curriculum. And the last one is Financial Aid and Money Management. Because I find that my mission is to help raise these kids out of poverty. And the best way to do that is get them out of their environment. So they have to know about money management. I was especially happy to hear about what Xello is doing in that realm. It's like the Monopoly game and the real game part of of Anthony's presentation. So I wanted to share with you a few of the slides. This is not all encompassing, but a few of the slides that I include in my PowerPoint presentations. And I'm happy to discuss this further with you. If you have any questions, my contact info will be at the end of the PowerPoint. So the first thing I talk to these students about is you've got your resume, it's in Google Docs. We changed the name of where they're going to college and what their potential major is. And then we keep working from that point on. But we talk about setting goals, that these are their goals. And one of the things I do with my students is I go to their college website and I type in Florida State University Latin Honors, and we find out what are the parameters to graduate summa cum laude, magna cum laude, high honors, honors, because I want them to have goals and see how they can work towards those goals before they even step foot on campus in August. And so we talk about goal setting. We talk about having a balanced life, setting social goals. For many of my students, joining a fraternity or a sorority is key to setting up their network in life. So I also try to work on funding for that part of their life once they get to college. A part of the Youth Foundation is community service. So how are you going to plug in? How are you going to serve your community when you get there? And then most of our students play a sport. Tennis, usually because we are a tennis nonprofit, but they are free to explore other sports as well. And I talk to them about not being fearful of failure, but making sure that they're planning their life to have sports in their life, to keep their endorphins going, to be happy, to have that balanced life that they need when they are out on their own. And then we talk about, I call it planning a meaningful day. And I go over their schedule with them. And we actually talk about, are you going to use a paper planner? Are you going to use a computer planner? And let's put your classes in. Okay, you've got a 2-hour gap here. Do you eat breakfast before you go to class or after? Maybe that's when you grab breakfast between those two. Where are your study times? So we talk about you're going to fit your class in first. You're going to block out study time when you are in the library. You're going to put the recreation classes, whether it's yoga, Pilates, you're on club tennis, whatever you want to do. And then club meetings. Are you a member of Hillel or the Newman Center? Are you a member of Rock the Vote? And then something that I feel is very important to college students is making sure that they're sleeping enough. And I tell them, think about this. If you're taking 15 hours of courses, your study time is going to be 30 hours. So that's 45 hours of work. So this is now your job. But once you're done with classes on Friday, that is your social time. That is the time you're going to have fun and you're going to do the football games on Saturday. But Sunday after brunch, arguably the best meal on campus because they usually have stations and waffles and everything they don't have a lot of during the week. After brunch, you're in the library. So just kind of tips that seem practical, but if no one brings it to the forefront in their mind and if they aren't informed before they go to college, then they may not think of some of these items that are secondhand to us, but maybe no one has told them that for every hour you're in class, it's going to be 2 hours outside of class to study. And then we talk about food. Um, one of my students came back to me in December. This was many years ago. And she said, you know, that slide you had on food in your brain, that really made sense. She said, and then when I am in the cafeteria, I have your little voice in my head, Jane, does your plate look colorful or does it look like the beige diet of French fries, mashed potatoes, and macaroni and cheese? And she said that once her mother was a very good cook too. And but she thought, I'm glad you told me that because I would have gone for the comfort food and not thought about how my brain is working on the food that I am putting in my body. And one analogy I give students, either before they take a standardized test, or again, I remind them with this slide before they go to college, is if money was no object and you could have any car that you want, what kind of car would you choose? And most of them will say something like, oh, a Porsche or a Lamborghini or, a very fancy, expensive car. And then I ask them, what kind of gas? You go to the gas station, there's three different grades, sometimes four of gas. What kind of gas do you think that kind of vehicle would take? And they all say, well, the most expensive one, the premium. And I said, right. So if you want your brain to work like a Lamborghini or a Porsche, you need to feed it like a Lamborghini or Porsche. The worst thing you can do is eat a Snickers bar and drink a can of Coke because your blood sugar is going to go up like this and you're going to crash, you're going to be tired, it's going to affect how you think, and you're not going to do well on your exam the next day. Um, so that's just another tidbit that I share with the students. And then on a more practical level, we talk about graduating in 4 years. Getting credit for everything you've done in high school, those AP courses, the exams you took, the IB courses. If you're in a early college dual enrollment, those college courses you took at the community college or took online through your junior ROTC program. Making sure that they get credit for everything because it will expand their opportunities. And I think I do have time. So I'm going to tell you an anecdote. One of my students at Mount Washington graduated with her AA. She is a presidential scholar at Florida State. And she also met Fulbright Futures funding, just a brilliant young lady. And she called me in November and she said, I can graduate in May. I said, well, Amaya, you've only been at FSU. This is just the beginning of your second year. She said, I know, but because I came in with my AA, I can graduate. And I said, okay, well, then what are your plans? She said, well, I think I'd like to get a master's in international affairs. And I said, I thought you were an anthropology major. She said, I am, but I'm really interested in international affairs and I studied abroad last summer. And I said, okay, hold on. Let me point out a few things. You are a completely independent leech. Your education is paid for. So why rush? Why not pick up a double major in international affairs? And how about that minor in Spanish or another minor? Let's go ahead and stay at FSU. You don't need to graduate at 19 years old. when you are leaving 2 years of funding on the table. So she agreed with that. And so she's going to pursue that. And I said, and also, if you have Bright Futures money, that will pay for one semester of your master's program. And her parents wisely, which I couldn't believe they did this, but they're really forward thinking, they did do Florida prepaid for her. So I said, there is really no rush to get out. So let's see the possibilities. So I share that with the students, and also a number of our students have plans. So I talk to them about you have to be the advocate when you get to school. So it's important that we're sharing this information with them before they go off to college. And then we talk about planning their curriculum and how to do that. So on the next slide, you'll see, I tell the students, you don't have to choose your major in their first year. I use myself as an example and say I was an accounting major for a week. And then I switched to marketing and management, and then management and psychology. You don't have to know, but that every class you take, make sure that it's one that you want to be in, that you feel you can be successful in, and be mindful of the dates that you can add and drop or withdraw from a class. Often students don't know about that. And then, especially the population I am now serving, and it can be devastating when they don't withdraw or drop a class with that they're failing. And then, talk to upperclassmen, use Rate My Professors, figure out who your professors are going to be, and see if what the descriptions are jive with the way you learn. And then I want to leave a little bit of time for questions, so I'm going to kind of quickly go through a few more. I talk to them about how to study, note-taking tips, very important. A study out of Penn came out several years ago with the advent of laptops and iPads. Students who are typing their notes are merely transcribing. Students who are taking their notes longhand retain more of the information. So I talk to the students about how testing is done, what they're required to know, whatever your chapters are assigned, your lecture notes, any other reading assignments or articles, that's what you're responsible for when it comes test time. And then I want to talk a little bit about financial aid. I put in bold, FAFSA must be completed every year you're in college. A lot of families think I'm one and done. I do the FAFSA, I do the FFAA, and I'm done. No. My biggest challenge with the kids at the Youth Foundation is making sure the parents have filed their taxes. And it's heartbreaking. And also, the complexities of the CSS profile, which is going to be the new thing I champion to make it fewer questions for students coming from impoverished areas, from CBOs. They don't know what a trust is. They don't know how to value their auto collision business because they don't own the business and they are the business. So, students like Amaya, who went to Florida State, was accepted at the University of Pennsylvania. She probably would have gotten a full ride had her parents had the desire to fill out and the knowledge, the CSS profile. But, I had another student the year before who is a Moorhead Kane at Chapel Hill, whose parents did not want the government up in my business. And I get that, but he was accepted to Dartmouth and Yale. And he's in a great place at Chapel Hill. He's so happy. But I just think of the possibilities. So my new thing that I'm going to champion is making that CSS profile easier for families. 10 questions. Do you have a trust? No. Easy questions to make sure no one is being a CSS millionaire or whatever. And then appealing a financial aid package, many times my families need to do this. And it could be due to, and that is outlined on the next slide. That can be due to the loss of a parent, the incarceration of a parent. Um, and so I walk them through how to do that process. Many families don't think that they have a process to appeal. They need to know this going into college. And Steve and Anthony both talked about loans and debt and selling organs. I want my students to have the best possibilities for options. And we are blessed in Florida to have bright futures. And I have them test every way, ACT, SAT, CLT, so they can meet 100% Bright Futures funding for their academic career. Um, and I don't want them to take out loans because they aren't forgivable at all. And this is something that I drive home with, especially the parents with the Parent Plus loans. And then also with the advent of AI, I heard the stat in 20 years, 50% of our jobs will be gone because of AI. And I was listening to an interview with Jim Vandehei 2 weeks ago. He's on Axios, and he dubs himself a technology dope, which I can certainly relate to. And he said one day he spent a day exploring AI. He built 6 websites and did 3 business plans. So one new tact I am taking now is talking to my students about the viability of their career in 10 years, in 20 years, whether it's finance or it's graphic design. Um, Thankfully, a lot of my students want to do healthcare. And I don't think that's going to change much, but I think it's something that we all need to be aware of. And then my final slide, and of course, I've got more of these if anybody wants to schedule a one-on-one, and I can show you all 3 PowerPoints. I'd be happy to do that or do a Zoom call on that. Is again, my goal is to raise these children out of poverty. I talk to them about how to start saving for their future. And Amaya, the young lady who called me in November, she said, I've applied for a number of internships next summer. If I get paid and I get housing, can I open a Roth IRA? And I said, yes, because she graduated 2 years ago. I just added this last year. And so at 19, if she gets this internship with NPR or NBC and all the organizations she's applied to, she will get paid and she can open a Roth IRA. So this is one way to help my students see that there can be a bright future for them, um, after they graduate with no debt, hopefully, and with a bright future. And then on the next side is my contact information, and I'm happy to take any questions you all have. And thank you so much, Sierra and Darla, for putting this very informative afternoon together.
Thank you. Any questions in the chat?
I don't see any.
I don't see any either. Thank you for sharing that. I think one that is often overlooked is specifically that curriculum piece for college. I remember as a student showing up to orientation and being like, okay, so I'll meet with the counselor and my advisor who's on my list. I'll have this advisor person and I'll talk to them and they'll guide me. There's nobody, right? I just showed up to a computer and they were like, so sign up for your classes. And I said, according to what? How do I know what I'm supposed to sign up for? And they're like, we don't know. We're college students, so figure it out. And I was like, okay. And I called my mom and I was like, I don't know what to do. Right. And so I think it's one of those moments where helping equip students and empower them to know these things and to be able to walk into that college experience for that retention, for those dreams, I think is so, so important. So thank you for sharing those tips.
Absolutely. And Sierra, you're lucky that you have the mom you have, that she could guide you.
I'm so grateful for her. Anyone who knows, you know that I'm obsessed with her and I'm so grateful for her.
Absolutely.
All right. if that's it, I'm going to click to the next slide. And I'm going to stop your spotlight and spotlight the three of us for a moment. One second. So thank you again, Cynthia. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight Darla and Monique. I'm going to spotlight you, okay? Be prepared. Um, and then myself as well. Can I do that? Perfect. And the last thing that I want to just share with you all, there's a couple of things, but one is, again, that conference, if y'all are able to make it, we really hope you can. You can scan that QR code or sign up. And then finally, uh, this is my last year serving as DIW Florida co-coordinator. So we are looking for someone else to work with Darla next year and to make sure that a conference like this or like a workshop like this, sorry, could be put together and serve our community. So if you are interested, please email that last email address here, state initiatives, right? Or is it state area initiatives? Okay, state initiatives at sacac.org. I don't remember if it was state area or state initiatives, but we'll put the right one in the chat. Um, and I wanted to thank SAI again for all that they do to make sure that these types of things can happen. And thank my wonderful co-coordinator Darla for the work that she had done to put this together. She jumped right in, both feet first, and I really appreciate her. Before we go, Monique, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, I just want to say, first of all, good afternoon to my fellow Floridians. And I want to say thank you to Darla and to Sierra for organizing such an informative session for us this afternoon. It's not evening yet, guys. But I have so many notes. Like I was sitting here just jotting things down and reviewing them. I do want to say you all did a phenomenal job, and to every presenter, Steve, Pete, Anthony, and Cynthia, thank you for taking your time and sharing your expertise and educating us and inspiring us as well. For those of you that maybe you had to log out, maybe got interrupted, you had a call, or you logged in a little late, I do want to remind you that this meeting is being recorded. And also, if you like me and you just probably need to hear it again, you can always go back and listen to the recording. Diana, our executive assistant, does a phenomenal job of communicating post drive-in workshop resources and information. So if there's anything that presenters want to share, as well as the recording, you'll get that information via email. So no worries. It's also located on our SACAC YouTube page. And I do want to also just give a shout out to Sierra, because for those that don't know, Sierra and I worked together as co-chairs prior to me rolling on the board. So I've watched her just grow over the last 3 years and serving in other capacities as well. So she's not going anywhere. Let's be clear. But we are looking for a Florida Drive-In Workshop co-chair, and there may be some other opportunities for you to serve. So if you have any questions or you just want to know more ways to serve, you can reach out to stateinitiatives@sacac.org. That is the right email. Yes, I had to check because I don't email myself and my co-chairs. And as a team, we check the emails, but we don't really send the emails. So that is the correct email address. And we'll be happy to answer any questions. And I also want to say that goes for any of the board members. If you see an area where you like to serve or you're interested, but you may want to know a little bit more information, you can check out the website. Yes, but you can also email us and just ask any questions that you may have if you're interested in a specific area. I'm hoping to see you guys at the conference in New Orleans. Registration closes in just a couple of weeks, so make sure that you are watching that. And I also want to encourage you, Sierra and Darla shared great information about extending the dream and the CPF grant opportunities. So check that out. And if you are not a member, what are you doing? Okay, we need you to go ahead and click the button. Go ahead and register. It's no cost if you meet the FAM or free access membership requirements. So excited to continue to see our Florida membership grow. And again, thank you, ladies, and to the presenters for a phenomenal evening. And I'll see you guys afternoon. I just want the evening to come. Afternoon. I'll see you guys in New Orleans next month.
Thank you, Monique. One quick comment. Thank you, Sierra, for all your hard work and you guiding me through this process. I attended the SACAC annual conference this past year, and that's when SAI threw it out that, hey, if you want to be a volunteer, just let us know. Here's a quick email. I was at one of my at one of the presentations of, it was like the Florida representatives presentation. All I did was send an email out to state initiatives. It was Monique who circled back and said, Darla, can we talk? And it really is that simple. Monique and her cohorts will actually meet with you, talk to you about what's available, and find the right fit for you as a volunteer to be a little bit more involved. As we all know, we gain so much insight when we actually do the work with an organization. We have more respect and understanding of everything that it offers. So I highly encourage you, if you can't go to the annual conference, even consider still becoming a volunteer or do both. The other thing, every time I go to the SACAC conference, I always come home feeling like I just went to church camp. I am revived and I have just gotten so much information. It's almost like information overload and excitement. So if you have an opportunity, please consider going to our annual conference so that you can also gain that insight with peers that are high school counselors, admissions officers, as well as independents and CBOs.
And I have one more shameless plug. um, I do want to say I also encourage you to continue to grow in leadership in SACAC, not just at state and area initiatives level, but on the board as well. And pay close attention to when those applications open. Nominate someone for awards, all the work that they're doing within the organization. I do want to shout out my co-chairs who I'm going to miss, Darren and Kristen, who are not able to make it, but they're going to watch the recording. They are rolling off. So I'm going to have new co-chairs, but that also means we need more chairs. So we always need volunteers. So I'm looking at some faces here that I see and I recognize. So Allison and I can't see anybody else. I see Pete, but Allison, you popped up. Cynthia, I just want to encourage you all to also consider leading from the front as well, presenting, wherever that they can start out as a host, if you're new to SACAC, just to kind of to start out as a host. If you're in SACAC for like a year or so, you maybe want to just learn a little bit more or mentor someone that's in the organization. But I just encourage you to get involved and to stay involved.
That's great. Thank you so much for everyone for attending. I appreciate y'all's time. And thank you again to our presenters. We really appreciate the wisdom and all the information you shared today.